Each week during this series of sermons, we've been taking this Micah 6:8 passage and focusing on a portion of it, one piece at a time. So 2 weeks ago, Pastor Adam, he began and kicked off this series by focusing on justice. Last week, we focused on kindness. This week, we're shifting our focus to humility, which is my task. And so I'm going to try to lead us through a sermon on humility. And one of the things that we need to recognize is that there's a whole bunch of ways, different ways that you can define humility. There's a lot of different definitions that are floating out there. One definition that I came across this past week that defined humility, it kind of spoke to me. This is what it said. Humility is defined as a psychosocial orientation characterized by a sense of emotional autonomy and freedom from the control of the competitive reflex. I love that idea. Humility is the freedom from the control of our competitive reflex. Yes, I need that. Freedom from this competitive reflex. Competition is my number one strength when you look at Clifton's strengths. It's something that drives me. I'm kind of pride myself on being competitive. And if what humility is being set free from the control of our competitive reflex, then that is something I got interested in. I was excited about it. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't struggle with competition at all. That's not in my list of strengths. That's not one of my gifts. And what I'm going to tell you is that competition and our competitive reflex is something that we all have. It's innate as to who it is that we are and how it is that we live and move and have our being. Every one of us has this competitive reflex. It's a natural impulse. It's a human tendency. It's something that we all have that causes us to oppose, to outdo, to one-up all of those around us. It's not malicious. It's just, who we are, and it can happen. It can happen fast. It's something that happens automatically whenever it is that we're seeking to connect with our friends or confronting our enemies. To be humble is to be set free from this reflex, which really manifests itself as our need to be right, to defend ourselves, to win, to outdo, to outshine everybody else. This isn't about athletic competition. This isn't about ambition, climbing, succeeding, surpassing goals. This is about our interpersonal relationships. This is about our social dynamics, our emotional responses, our spiritual well-being. We all have this competitive reflex when it comes to how it is that we engage with one another. We have a desire to outshine other people around us, to outdo them, to one up, to level up, to elevate ourselves over and above everybody else, or sometimes to devalue ourselves under everybody else. So you might be thinking still, I don't have a competitive reflex. And so I'm going to tell you, I think you do. And as a way of uncovering this, it's important to ask some really simple questions. And so I want you to listen to these questions and evaluate, is this something that applies to you? And if you happen to be sitting next to somebody that knows you really well, maybe like a good friend or a spouse or a family member, I want you to think about their answers to the same questions about you. This will help you to uncover your ability to reconcile with your competitive reflex. Do you offer unsolicited advice to others about how they should live their lives better? If someone happens to tell you a joke, do you feel compelled to top it with a better one? Or do you hold back on laughing so that their joke falls flat? Do you find that you have a better story when you're in the company of friends or acquaintances and they're telling stories? Do you find that your stories are generally better, or do you have better examples or better suggestions or better solutions than the people around you? Do you feel compelled to demonstrate how smart you are in conversations or how much you know based on your experience? Are you a backseat driver? Do you like to tell people around you and especially parents around you how it is that they should be raising their kids? When somebody says something mistaken or they take a subtle misstep in a detail of a story, how do you respond? Lastly, if you have a different opinion, do you participate in a win-lose debate until everybody agrees with your opinion? Or do you listen and allow dissenting opinions to lie? My guess is, as you're thinking about some of those questions in your life, you're recognizing that you have this competitive reflex and how it is that you deal with other people. It's something about who we are, and what humility is being free from the control of those impulses. It's being free from our need to one-up people or to level up or to outshine the people around us. And one of the things that you recognize is that as we strive to be more humble, as we live with humility, then what we're actually asking is a question of how do we live and create spaces, and how do the people around us in those spaces feel because of our presence with them? As you're moving through your life or at work or at school or at home or in your neighborhood, wherever it is that you find yourself, are the people around you, do they feel accepted? Do they feel encouraged? Do they feel listened to? Do they feel heard? Are they better off for being in your presence, or do they feel devalued? Do they feel shut out, made to feel low, embarrassed because of their inexperience based upon your wealth of knowledge? Part of what we have to focus on when we focus on humility is how it is that we are seeking to compete with those around us socially or emotionally or even spiritually. And humility is being set free from that competitive reflex.